All right, all right. Yeah, we are going live now. The indicator has indicated that we are, in fact, going live. Hello, Sue. How are you? It's nice to
I'm
see
good.
you. Good, good, good. Happy Friday. Welcome, everyone out there, to another installment of Get a Clue in 52. That's me. That's Sue. That's me. That's Sue. And it's so fun to see the cartoon version of yourself. But by now, folks know that we are online every week to read one tip. This is the 4 speakers edition, right? And in the past, Sue, you'll have more to say about this year's edition in a minute, but let me summarize, how we got here. Originally, Get a Clue in 52 was 5 categories. The very first version that we did was the categories were communication, marketing, sales, networking, and accountability. We added 2 extra tips in the marketing section, so I'd have a year's worth, and I got into this rhythm, habit, maybe now it's an addiction or a lifestyle, part of my identity, where once a week I would get online and read a tip on Zoom and stream it into Facebook. And then the next year I read all the same tips, but streamed it into YouTube. And then I wrote the second version of Get a Clue in 52 with co-author Vipul Dayal. And that was the entrepreneur edition. So those 5 categories were personal branding, business acumen, business ownership, leadership and influence, and work-life balance. And Vipul and I read those tips every Tuesday night in, I want to say, 2022. Yeah, 2022, we read it every Tuesday night and streamed it into the, right? Then last year, I wrote another Get a Clue in 52. Now I'm addicted to this process, right? I'm going to write one every year for like 10 years, I think. And it was for coaches. And so the 5 categories when we did Get a Clue in 52 for coaches were self-promotion, engagement, enrollment. How do we get permission to lead? Then it was motivation, then accountability, and then practice building. And practice building shows up again in our edition this year, Get a Clue in 52 for speakers. We're repurposing, reposition a little bit. But Sue, why don't you take over and talk to us about Get a Clue in 52 for speakers, the speaker edition of 4 speakers with yourself, co-author Sue Mathieson, all the way from down under. So take it away and let us know about this year's version, and then we'll get into this week's tip.
Sure. Well, actually, before I do, because you mentioned the entrepreneur edition and then the coaches edition. And one of the things that I did was I was in on majority of those tip reading sessions. And then as we headed towards the end of last year, Jeff, you together with you, and that was where the current edition of Get a Clue in 52 for speakers came from. And it was a conversation that we'd had around when I put my hand up and said, absolutely, this is something I would really love to do. And we talked through some different topics. But when you mentioned speakers, for me, that was just been such a part of my life for many, many years. It's an area that you and I had worked on and off, but it had come through. And so that was a natural progression for me, was to pick up on what can we do for speakers. And as well as that, it was I guess it evolved that we could do this in a way that it was reflect you as mentor, me as mentee. What does that look like week to week in having those conversations? And then as we read these, and for the reader, for anyone that is online with us, that's what they would start to feel was, okay, this is what it's like to work with you as a coach, as a mentor. And that was where this came from. The 5 categories that we cover in this, and Jeff talked about, well, actually he didn't talk about the book, but the first section is about playing the integrity game. And that came out of Jeff's book that he wrote now, 12 months ago, I'm going to say, The Integrity Game. And again, that is something that so we've got 10 tips that we're working through. That's the section that we're in at the moment of what's it like to play the integrity game as a speaker. later on, we'll move into the sections of bringing out your brand, being your fearless self. What does it take to actually get up on stage and be able to be authentic, but do it in a way that is just natural? And what's the work that's involved there? Within that section, there is one specific tip that is really involved. And so we took the time to break that out further and to create a series of tips that pick out the elements, the form, the functions that it takes to actually write an amazing speech. And then, as Jeff mentioned, from the Entrepreneur Edition, that last section is about taking your speaking practice into a business. What does that take? What is the work and what do you need to consider in doing that? So they're the sections that we worked through in this. But coming back to the actual tips that we're up to, our first one was in the integrity game when we talked about declaring purpose. Why is it that you want to be a speaker? Or why is it that I want to be a speaker? For me, it's about having presence to build my business. It's about enjoying the process of speaking in itself.
Yeah.
It's about earning revenue. It's about declaring a message. And I guess they were some of the things that we talked about that we need to have in mind, or really understanding and asking ourselves that question, what is our purpose? And then tip 2 was about packaging our gifts together. And if you're reading the book, you will see the dialogue between myself and Jeff. And that was what we wanted to capture in this book, was the questions that I was asking for myself as a speaker, because to improve and to show up more effectively. And what does that require? And this is where a lot of this comes from. So leading on from purpose, it was integrating what are the gifts that I bring? And not only what have I learned along the way, what am I, from a marketing perspective, what are my competitive advantages? Right. But also integrating that with, we talked about what the audience needs from what I can bring. And so it's bringing those together. And then from there, we moved into tip 3, which was the chronology of potential.
Yeah, this was just last week that we covered tip number 3. This was last week.
That's right. And then within that, there were 3 elements. So it's talking about vision. It's how far out can you see? How do you see yourself as a speaker? How do I see myself as a speaker? You know, if I'm standing on stage doing that view, what do I see in front of me? And then from there, what is my mission? What are the things that show that I'm on my way to achieving that vision? And one of the things that you highlight is that a mission is an accomplishment or achievement that takes a long time to earn, but it proves that we're on that way to our vision. And the third element within that is our objectives, which from a time perspective is more about the 12-month window.
Annual, yeah.
Again, the annual. So when we got to the end of that tip, there was a comment that I made, which I'm going to refer back to, and then that will lead straight into what we're going to talk about today. And where I finished up was understanding, and what I might do is just read what I said, and then Jeff will just take on from there, because it flows into our conversation for today.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
So I said, I can see that attempting to choose one or more specific topics begins to sabotage who I am. It lessens the value of my life experiences and therefore the value of what I can bring to the audience. I realized too that there are many speaking opportunities I've had to date that I haven't consciously put together in chronological order as part of my mission. I've done interviews on stages in front of large audiences, many Toastmaster speeches, spoken at conferences, and presented at countless executive meetings. Without a really clear vision of myself as a speaker, my objectives haven't been clear. They've been rather haphazard. Great experiences, but not really pulling me forward to where I realize I'd rather be going. And given that I have some work to do, particularly with my vision and my objectives, what comes next?
Well, that's a great question. And coincidentally, it brings us to the next tip. Read on as we move from page 37 into today's tip, number 4, making smart even smarter. Here we go on page 38. Thank you, Sue. When it comes to next steps, it comes down to the next set of questions in the integrity game model, goal setting. I believe that nothing helps us decide next steps or manage our time better than goal setting. Most successful people I've ever met, coached, hired, or worked with all share the quality of setting goals, and therefore all know exactly what to do and all know exactly what they do and don't want to be doing in any given moment. So, what are your goals as a speaker, or what are your goals that speaking can help you achieve? For me, a goal focus is a 3 to 6 month focus, not like the longer term thinking we've applied to our vision, mission, or annual objectives. Now, for what do I do next? We want to break our objectives down even further into quarterly goals, and not just goals, but SMART goals. The key question in this set is, and I'm going to slow down a little bit. Let me say this again. The key question in this set of questions around goal setting, the key question in this set is, what is the greatest thing I can achieve, parentheses, most progress I can make, in parentheses, in the next 3 months that will prove I'm on my way to accomplishing my objectives? It sounds like an easy question, but when we look further at the criteria for SMART goals versus hopes, wishes, or dreams, we will see how difficult it is. Still, for your speaking career or for the career that speaking requires, what are your quarterly SMART goals? If you tell me what you want to achieve in the next 3 months, we are on our way to knowing exactly what to do next. Again, it sounds simple, but it isn't. A lot of people confuse a hope, wish, or a dream with a goal. The reason we use the SMART criteria is for the accountability that being specific, measurable, and time-bound creates, the S, the M, and the T. We also really love the achievable A piece of the acronym because of how important it is to believe we can achieve what we set out to achieve. If you Google SMART, S-M-A-R-T, SMART goal setting, you will find the common knowledge that goal setting can be. But you will also see several instances of the R in SMART referring to realistic. When I first learned SMART goal setting, I was okay with the R as realistic until I realized that it was actually somewhat redundant if we have already screened for achievable. It has been famously said that whether we believe we can or we believe we cannot, we are correct. So if we believe we can achieve our goal, that is our reality. Thus, I changed the R to stand for reason or reward, so we could talk about the real motivations required to pursue a meaningful goal. Moreover, I also added an A for ambitious to remind my clients that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So if we are setting a goal to get a result we currently do not have, we must change at least one of our current behaviors in order to get it.
And wow, this is starting to make so much sense. If I set goals in such a way that they require a change in behavior, I'm not only going to be moving toward my vision as a speaker, but I'm also most likely going to improve the quality of my speaking. I'm hoping that you, Jeff, will share some tips on delivery as a speaker later. And that way I can more effectively integrate speaking skill and speaking outcomes into my goal setting.
All right. All right. There you have it. We're done with tip number one. That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, not tip number one. I just saw number one right there in the corner. There's one set of eyeballs that's watching us on social media somewhere. Hello to whoever you are. I'm going to make a banner real quick just to post in case anybody wants to come on. We're going to be on for maybe 30 more minutes or something like that. But if anybody wants to join live, and if I didn't do a good job promoting this link, if you want to come on board and talk with Sue and I, it's tinyurl.com/cluetip4. Let me go ahead and show that. tinyurl.com/cluetip4, and you'll jump on in and you'll be here with us in the ecosystem to discuss today's tip. Now, Sue, I've got it. I was SMART goal setting, by the way. SMART goal setting shows up in just about all the work I do. I don't care if it's coaching, consulting, if it's soft skill training, if it, there's been at least one tip around goal setting in all of the Get a Klu in 52 books, right? Because goal setting is always such a key component of achievement and performance and calibration and focus and resilience and accountability and so forth. It shows up across the board. But I was conscious in our version here to be brief. This is the briefest I've ever discussed this tip. And there's a lot of and there's a lot of reasons for that. And I just want to make sure the audience, our audience, whoever may be watching a recording of this in the future, anybody that's out there live right now, and I should actually edit this to say, join us. Let's do that. Join us. All right. No, freedom within the framework. Okay, join us. This is how you join us. All right. So the idea is this, and if it didn't come through as fluid as I would have liked when I was reading, when I became a coach, Sue, you know that I learned SMART, S-M-A-A.R.T.E R, and it was better than what I had known before about goal setting, which was nothing. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe goal setting is so important. I could see how when you set a goal, it makes all of the difference in the world about, getting specific about what you want, measurability and accountability. And, but it was better. I can't believe they don't teach this in school. I couldn't believe it. And then when I progressed as an accountability coach, I learned so much more about what's required to achieve new results as behavioral change. And there was nothing in the SMART model, S-M-A-A.R.T.E R, about changing behavior. There was, specific, measurable, achievable, and then realistic, and then time. So realistic, again, to me, it became redundant, right? When we're screening if our goals are achievable, when we're making sure that our goal is achievable, one of the things we have to screen for is, do we believe we can? Because if we don't believe we can achieve a goal, it isn't achievable. Even if it's physically possible, humanly possible, even if the truth is we're capable, more than capable, even probable, predictable that we can achieve this particular goal. If we don't believe we can, we won't.
Yeah, exactly.
So when we're screening for achievability, we're screening for belief. Now, we also know that a belief is a feeling of certainty that something is true. So belief covers realistic. What we believe is our reality. So then I started thinking, well, the R, if it stands for realistic, that's redundant now. Never mind that redundant starts with an R too. Haha. So like on the way, to reason or reward, we stopped at redundant. So I had a placeholder R, SM, specific, measurable, achievable, redundant, and time bound, which is fun. But what I arrived at is like, look, I'm a coach. Okay. I'm here to motivate people and to hold them accountable. Motivation plus accountability equals results.
Yeah.
So what's the why? Why do you want this specific measurable thing that you believe you can achieve? Why do you want that? The other thing I know is if we want the same thing, if we do the same thing over and over, expecting a different result, we're insane, as I mentioned here in the book, right? In the tip when we were down. So the idea is somewhere along the line, people are going to have to change behavior. If they want a new result, you're going to have a new behavior. By new, that could be decreasing something you're doing too much of. It could be increasing or improving quantity or quality of something you're already doing. It could be starting something that you're not doing, or it could be stopping that, whatever that needs to, decrease isn't good enough for that. You need to stop that. So DISS are the approaches to behavioral change. Because the thing is, if you don't want to change your behavior, you don't need to hire me. Does that make sense? So people hire coaches to change behavior. People hire trainers to be able to do something that they couldn't do before. right? People hire mentors to get better at something, on and on and on. So I was being brief in this tip to keep in flow with our dialogue. And I want everybody out there to know there's so much more when it comes to goal setting. And a lot of this goal setting stuff sounds easy, but it's, I've done this before. Like, I'm in the room with 50 people. It's like, how many of you set goals? And everybody raises their hand. I'm like, okay, write them down real quick and pass them forward. And if 50 people had 2 minutes to write their goals down and pass them forward, I get a bunch of blank sheets of paper, or a bunch of gibberish, or a bunch of run-on sentences, or a bunch of hopes, wishes, and dreams. And so in the context now of playing the integrity game, right? In the context of playing the integrity game, they all integrate. All these tips go together. So as you summarized for us beautifully before we got into the tip reading, we start by, why do we want to be a speaker? What is our purpose for being a speaker? What's our purpose for any given speech? What's our purpose for being a speaker, getting better at speaking? Why do we want to speak? What's the purpose of all of that? And if we don't have answers to that, anything else that we're trying to do as a speaker might be building a mansion on top of quicksand. It might not have the stability, the sturdiness, the resilience, right? To withstand pressure tests or criticisms or setbacks or hiccups, or when the PowerPoint's not working, or any of those things could crumble us if we're not totally aligned with our purpose. We'll find a way to interact with all of those mishaps when we know our purpose, right? But then, as you talked about gifts, what am I bringing? What's the gift of this occasion? What are my competitive advantages? Why does somebody want to hire me as a speaker instead of somebody else? Right? I was honored last year when 2 of my former students that had taken my class 10 years ago called me up and said, "Hey, Jeff, do you remember me? I took your class 10 years ago. Well, now I'm a director of marketing, and we're putting on a conference, and we need a speaker, and I thought of you." Like, why did they think of me?
Wow.
In all the 10 years? Like, what was my competitive advantage? What was other than average for me? What did I do better than everybody else? What do I do that nobody else does? Right? And so we want to be aware of our competitive advantages and make sure that's integrated with purpose for ourselves, for our reasons for being a speaker and what we're bringing to the table as a speaker. And now, then you start to evaluate the audience and the organizer and the event, the organizer, the audience. What do they all need to get out of this, and what would be a gift for them? Right? But a lot of people are trying to appease an audience or appease an event organizer, and they haven't figured out what their competitive advantages yet, and they bid on gigs and don't get the gigs, and so on and so forth. And then as we progress to playing through playing the integrity game, where we arrived today was goal setting is inside of a year. And as you pointed out, when we talk about the chronology of our potential, wrestling with questions of potential is the third piece. So if I know my purpose and I know my gifts, now I can start to imagine my potential. So for vision, when I look out as far into the future as I possibly could see, what do I see? That's a description. But then the mission is, closer to me than vision, farthest out, but it's still quite a ways away, and it's an accomplishment, a destination, an arrival, right? And then 1 year out, annual objectives. What are the main 3 or 4 objectives that I want to achieve this year in order to advance towards my mission, make progress towards my vision? So that's where we arrive today, which is, all right, less than a year, 3 to 6 months. What is the greatest thing I need to achieve by April 1st, July 1st, October 1st, and January 1st of 24 to make sure I'm on my way to meeting my annual objectives and on my way to my mission? So here we are, Sue. And I just wanted to clarify, where goal setting fits in the context of the integrity game, and make sure everybody out there knows that goal setting shows up in just about everything I do. And I was more brief about it in this tip than I've ever been about goal setting in any other place that I've ever described it. So those are my comments on today's tip. What say you?
I just really, it highlights what you're talking about, is when you do integrate goal setting into your purpose, your gifts and your potential, it makes them way more powerful. It's I guess I've realized over the years that if I look at goal setting on its own, it sort of becomes a bit of an ego trip of going, oh yes, I've set goals and I'm doing X, Y, Z. But they stand alone. They really, it's more about, oh yes, so I can say I'm doing something, but it's when it's integrated into those 3 tips that we've already talked about. That's where the power comes from. Then the goals become meaningful and really tangible, and the outcomes that you do see from those goals are actually taking you along the journey that you really want to go on. And it just takes them to another level, but it takes work. And I think that's maybe sometimes, and that comes up a lot in many of our conversations, is people's understanding of what work is effective. It's not always that they don't want to do the work. It's that sometimes they just don't know what is the best type of work that I could be doing or I should be doing to get where I want to go. And that's where this integration is so important.
Yeah, just to share, and by the way, that's beautifully said, Sue. And then just to let you know, there's a wonderful woman that I've met recently through Lisa Reed, who is shout out to Lisa Reed, by the way, who wrote the foreword for Get a Clue in 52 for speakers. Through her International Speakers Network, I met a wonderful woman on the other side of the pond, so to speak, in Europe, Dr. Suzanne Kurtz. And she can, I would just want to share some comments that she's been able to share with us.
Yeah, I'm seeing her comments come through.
Oh, yeah. She says, all right, other than the link and etc., she says, the PowerPoint, smiley face, reminds me of giving an academic talk at the Sorbonne, and I hope I'm pronouncing that, in Paris, where they didn't have a beamer in the room, right? Beamer, beamer, is that a laser pointer or maybe a projector? Good to always be prepared for the worst case scenario. Absolutely. And so I'm just going to go ahead and share my response, which I think is worth everybody seeing here. So I'll do it in banner form. When things, and you can only do 200 characters at a time. How interesting. So thanks. Let's see if I can shorten this. Thanks. And things. This is fun. You're getting used to all the tech here. And I don't know if that's enough. When things don't go as planned. Huh. Oh, yeah, there's a couple more characters. It's funny. You know how I like my ...
Yeah.
And that's like, so I'm going to, instead of don't go as planned, I'm going to say things don't work out, just to fit within the character limit. It's so funny. So let's put this up there. I said, hey, thanks, Dr. Suzanne. We always want to make room for Murphy. And this is the point, rooting her comment back in the context of the integrity game. If I know my purpose, I know my competitive advantages, and I know my vision, mission, and potential, okay, I'm going to have more options to look to draw from or fall back, to look to, draw from, or fall back on. Look to, draw from, or fall back on. So let's say I'm in a moment speaking, and there's a spill, or the power goes out, or my PowerPoint gets stuck, or the computer gets shut down, or somebody asks a question that I didn't anticipate. If I don't know and have at the top of my mind what my purpose is, I might answer in a way that doesn't help me achieve my purpose. I might not have the best answer. If I don't know what my gifts or competitive advantages are, I might not look to, draw from, or lean on them when I get an unwanted or unanticipated question. If I get a question from like a heckler or a naysayer or a critic, every audience has one.
Yeah.
Every audience has, the person in the audience that's like this, non-verbally showing you that they don't care anything that you're saying. They're not willing to be vulnerable. They're the know-it-all. They've already heard this before. When are you going to say some good? This is a waste of my time. And they finally want to speak, and because they got an aha or a gotcha moment. They're like non-verbally resisting everything you want to say. They wait for what they perceive as one weakness in your game, one cheek in your armor. And then they raise their hand, ask the question, so they could try to get the entire room to believe that they're smart rather than being there to like pay attention to anything you want to say. And if you're not, if you don't know your purpose, gifts, and potential in that gotcha moment from the naysayer in the audience that is there insecure as hell, but trying to project, confidence by looking for a chink in your armor to, commandeer your speaking opportunity to draw attention to themselves. And I've seen that so many times, right? It happens in a classroom. It happens among entrepreneurs. It happens in professional associations. It happens on board meetings. It It happens all over the place. Okay. So, we could be blown around like a feather in the wind by these unwanted occurrences if we don't have the structural integrity, the ability to withstand unwanted pressure tests. And I'm telling you right now, if I know every minute of every day what my purpose is, then I'm going to know that when an unwanted thing comes along, and I could look to, lean on, draw from my purpose in order to handle that. If I know what my gifts are, my competitive advantages, if I know, hey, one of my advantages is joke telling, storytelling, engaging with audiences. Well, when something goes wrong, I'm going to go right to those gifts.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to open up the keyboard and start to do technical analysis and troubleshoot anything technical. But I've seen speakers try to do that, try to fix the computer themselves. If the if PowerPoint's not working, I'm not going to, let me try to get the PowerPoint working. Oh, hang on while I see if I can get this to work. Hang on, Blue. That's not my gift, getting a PowerPoint to work. My gift isn't right? So I need to immediately go, well, screw the PowerPoint. You guys are just going to have to deal with me today.
Yeah. But I think, and being able to do that, though, from a credibility perspective is quite powerful, because it shows that you're there for the audience. You are there to share whatever it is that you or the reason that you were there in the first place. And I think too, it recognizes that they've given up their time to be there, to listen to you, whether it's through a PowerPoint or you're using that as a tool, or so you're not getting lost in what you just said, giving it time and energy to something that is not your expertise. You park, okay, the PowerPoint's not working, or something's gone wrong. You can park that, but you're still bringing yourself and being there for the purpose of why you are meant to be there, and you're recognizing that time
it becomes the filter through which you get to make better decisions.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's why I said top of mind. I don't have to go looking around for what are my best options here to handle this unwanted occurrence, because I've played the integrity and I practiced the integrity game. I have immediate command. It's funny, how many people, Sue, if you walked down the street and you stopped the first 1,000 people you saw and asked them all, hey, nice to meet you today. Nice shoes. What's your purpose? Or if you just said, hi, nice to meet you. What's your purpose? Out of 1,000, how many do you think have an answer to that?
Yeah, maybe 2.
Okay, maybe 2. Okay, so that's, never mind how frightening that is. Never mind. Okay. The question gets our mind focused on how valuable it is to know your purpose.
Yeah.
And this is true for anybody. And it's definitely true for speakers, right? Because there are audiences depending on us. There are audiences, like you said, that have taken time to come to see us. So we better know what the hell we're doing and better stay true to that. And then the other thing that we have to contend with is attention span.
Yeah.
Attention span. It's a shrinking attention span. It's amazing. I spent 6.5 years out of the classroom, right, when I retired from being a professor in 2017. And then last year, in 23, I got back into the classroom and started dealing with seniors. Thank God. At least they were 21, 22 years old, and I just saw the difference in attention span, though. Then I went to Speech 103, back to freshmen. And it's mind-boggling.
Wow.
How they're unable to pay attention. Well, unless it's like, well, they're able to pay amazing attention to their phones, but very little else.
Right.
And so we're dealing with that. We're contending with that. So if there's dead air, dead noise, if there's delays and hiccups, I want to fill every second I can. If I'm in a room with people, I don't It's funny too. I'm laughing at myself. So sometimes I try to play with the technology and I make myself a little bit vulnerable here when I'm trying to screen share and show things. Like, hang on, stay with me. Let me get the banner going, and I'm doing my own video production. I'm doing my own technical stuff, but it's part of my brand. My brand is like, done is better than perfect, and I'm a jovial, imperfect person, and I'm going to show all of my mistakes to the world. And I'm going to plow through them, and I'm going to learn from them, and I'm going to correct them, or whatever it is, right? But there's so much genius out there in the world, so many speeches that haven't been given, so many books that haven't been written, so much work that hasn't been shared, because people are searching for a perfection because they don't know their purpose, they don't know their gifts, they don't know their potential, so nothing's ever good enough for nothing. So they don't put their work out there because they're afraid of the criticism, because they can't defend their work against their purpose, defend their work against their potential. Does this make sense? So we're talking about structural integrity and the vertebrae that helps us build and stand on everything. What else, Sue? What else you got? We're moving into last call here with like 9 minutes to go in our scheduled time. What else do you have? Let me just do a review as you're thinking about your final comments or questions for us. We are welcoming everybody, for the 4th week in a row to Get a Clue in 52 for speakers. This is the 4th Get a Clue in 52 book, and they're all tips books. They all have 5 categories, and our 5 categories here, we're in it right now, the 4th tip in playing the integrity game, but then we're going to bring out your brand. Then we're going to give you 8 steps to being fearless, but we got 2 tips in front of being fearless, so 10 tips total in section 3. As Sue mentioned, one of those tips, the 5th step to being fearless, is so important. Now we're going to deep dive on it and give you elements, forms, and functions, but that's going to be like in the summertime that we're into that by the time we get to section 4. In the last 2.5 months of the year, we're going to talk about taking this monetizable skill set of speaking, and how do you take, I'm able to speak, I have a speech, I can speak, I want to be a speaker, and build a practice. You're going to have to start to meet 12 accountabilities that will lead you towards building a practice around speaking, and maybe even towards a business. I hesitate to call anything a business unless you have employees and salary and there's other mouths that you're feeding and so forth. I like practice, right? But that's hard enough, and we're going to explain all that with a lot of fun at the end of the year. But just to review and to reset as we head towards last call, in playing the integrity game on the 1st week of January, we started off with declaring our purpose. Then we moved on in the 2nd week to packaging our gifts, understanding what counts as a gift, what are our gifts, and how can we command our gift integrated, like in integration. How do we integrate the need to share, celebrate, lean on, promote, share our gifts with what the audience needs to get out of any given occasion? How do we integrate the autobiographical and the biographical from purpose to gifts, right? And then we can start to break down potential. For us as a speaker, when you look out in the future, as far as you can see, what do you see? So then what's the greatest accomplishment you can achieve that would prove you're on your way to that? And then what do you need to get done in the next year to keep you on the way to that mission? And then we break it down to what we talked about today, is quarterly goal setting. So if any of you are interested in quarterly goal setting, I cover in great detail SMART and SMART-E-R at the end of complimentary session number 1. And let's see if I have it up here. Let me just see if I have it real quick. We offer anybody that wants them 2 complimentary coaching sessions if you want to experience what one-on-one coaching is all about. And if that is the case, if you want to know why we offer 2 comp sessions, first of all, you can send us an email. We'll send you a video about why we do two complimentary coaching sessions. But if you're interested in scheduling a complimentary coaching session, either with myself or Sue, one of the things that we take you towards at the end of that comp session is goal setting. And we put you in a position to commit to setting goals as homework in between the first session and the second session. And it could be a life-changing experience. So if you want to schedule with myself, you'll schedule onto my calendar, but just put in the notes, if you want Sue to be your coach, go ahead and indicate that when you put it on there, and we'll do our best to make that happen. We're dealing with different time zones from Australia all the way here, but either of us will be available to help you out and take you through the complimentary coaching process. The first session is 90 minutes. and then the second session if you like it, right? Like, don't we joke around, Sue?
Yeah, that's right.
You only get the second session if you liked the first
Like the
one.
first.
Yeah. So you can go right to scheduling right here if you're watching this program. Normally we have a funnel. We want you to register and capture your email and all of that stuff. But we'll get that anyway when you schedule with us if you're interested in 2 complimentary coaching sessions. And having said all of that, we're here. We've arrived at I created a banner for this last week. I know I did. Last call. There we go. Last call. Comments, questions, jokes, haikus, poems, expressions of gratitudes, riddles. Do you have a riddle? Anything
I
like
have
that?
a riddle.
Oh, let's hear it.
I have a riddle. So, I have no voice, yet I speak to you. I tell of all things in the world that people do. I have leaves, but I am not a tree. I have a spine and hinges, but I am not a man or a door. I have told you all. I cannot tell you more. What am I?
Huh. That's a wow. I'm stumped here live in the live stream. I am stumped. I was going to guess a tree until you said I'm not a tree.
I'm a book.
Very cool. Very cool.
And I would be encouraging anyone who is watching, listening, if you were enjoying what Jeff and I are chatting about, our dialogue, get your own copy online so that you can read along with us and have something to go back to and refer to.
It's so funny. So I'm so committed to like the live stream and the lights and the recording and the comments and the banner. Like, I should probably create a link to our book on Amazon and put that across the banner as well, right? Like, yeah, you guys are encouraged to buy. But the truth is, what we're going to do, I think one of the reasons, and it's worth mentioning, and we want to get everybody ready in case anybody's watching, we want to make a push. Let's see if we can make a push to get this thing on up the bestseller list, right? And so the way that you do that is you don't put it out for $20 right away and hope everybody's going to buy it within 24 hours for $20. By the way, it's priced $20.24, this year's price. Hurry up before we go to next year's price and raise it one penny, $20.25. But what we're going to do probably sometime in April. Did we say? I don't know if we set a date,
April.
But sometime around April, we're going to like drop the price on this thing all the way down to like the lowest price that Amazon will let us price it, where they'll still be willing to print it and ship it. And as low as it possibly can, $1, $2, $3, whatever it's going to be, as low as we can possibly drop the price. And that's when we're going to be emailing and social media posting and pigeon carrier, message in the bottle, Pony Express. we're going to, Skywrite. We're going to let the world know every way we possibly can. Buy it today. And we might even do a promotion for anybody that buys 10 copies. We'll do a free talk for you guys. Whatever, we're going to put that campaign together and see if we can get a whole bunch of people to buy it all within like a day or an hour or something like that, and see how far up the list that we can get on Amazon and see if we can get into the bestseller list. And the last time I tried to do this at all, it was with the Integrity Game, and we got all the way to #1. And it surprised me. I was praying I would just get in the top 100 just to say, oh, I'm on the bestseller list. It's a best-selling book. But it was amazing to see #1, to be in that position. I was there for a couple of days, and I just have a lot of gratitude for everybody in my sphere of influence that took the time to buy books. And thanks in advance to all of those of you that are out there that are waiting for us to drop the price on this baby and get yourself your copy to push us up the charts and give us another pat on our backs. But otherwise, we're here ready to dialogue and smile and have a jovial time of it every Friday. It's Saturday for Sue in Australia.
Saturday for me.
But every Friday. And any last words, Sue, before we dismiss for today? Looking forward to next week's tip. It's going to be strategies, tactics, and resources next week. It's going to be so much fun.
Sounds good. Nothing more from me today.
All right.
It's been good.
All right. Well, on behalf of co-author Sue, and let me just give a shout out to Patty Blakesley somewhere out there who wrote the back cover copy for us. And let me also give a quick shout out, super quick, to Stella, who did interior design for us, and Sean, who did cover design for us, and like the queen, the matriarch of all of this, executive editor on all of the books that I've done, Patty. McKenna. Eternal gratitude to you, Patty, for all the ways that you guide us and steer us. And of course, Lisa Reed, CEO of the International Speakers Network and founder of Get Speaking Gigs Now. If you're not a member of ISN, International Speakers Network, find us, look us up, check us out. Tell Lisa that Kluby sent you. And we're looking forward to interactions there. But that's it. That's all we got for Get a Clue in 52. We'll see everybody next week. Sue, I love you. Thank you so much for everything that you've done to bring your voice and your kind of your loveliness to this whole project. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a fun session. See you next time.
See you next week. Bye, everyone.
Okay. Bye.